A very good evening to you and welcome to RTV News with me, Fiona Mbabazina. Officials in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning have noted that even though the country's economy was negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, preliminary figures could indicate the start of recovery after a total lockdown was lifted. Appearing before the parliamentarians, the ministry's top officials noted that different sectors are expected to perform well following measures taken to boost them, such as agriculture.
Season A was prepared well, with farmers getting their fields ready early and fertilizers and planting seeds were all supplied at rates exceeding what was expected. However, because of rainfall that was delayed in some parts of the country, especially the eastern and southern provinces, farmers were still cultivating their fields as late as September. The close of the season saw planting done at a rate of 61%. But planting did continue into October as rains increased, and the last figures to come in indicated rates of 96% of planted fields.
Parliamentarians did, however, express concerns over the number of loans the country has continued to take.
We appear to be taking many loans for things like the energy sector. Will we be able to pay all of them back? We will be paying back that money for the next 36 years. Where is it to come from? The payment of those loans is to begin in just 5 to 6 years. Will we get that money if all of them are due at once like that?
Now, the ministry gave assurances that the loans will not be a problem at all when it comes to paying them back.
We properly manage them and watch how they may intersect with each other. We look at when the interest is to be paid as well as the initial amount that was provided. We have sufficient figures to guide us in this and are not worried.
Now, Monday was the start of the second semester for most students who had been home for months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, these are those in the first, second and fourth year of high school and those in the fourth year of primary school. Martina Abera has the details.
The problem of lack of seats and the sending back of students to study in the categories was done in schools with 9 and 12 years of primary education and in primary schools. Students who were late to school due to them being in large numbers and having to prevent the spread of coronavirus has prevented some from continuing their studies and having to go back home so that they can come back in different shifts. They are saying this will affect their education, as even primary school students have been taking meals at school or studying half a day to be able to be replaced by another category of students. We definitely have an issue with this. We are used to studying twice, but due to studying once, we go back home in the afternoon and we are scorched by the sun on our way home. We used to study 8 lessons in a day, now we only study 5, and that will be the case in the meantime. We won't even be able to revise for the studies that we had in the previous days. There is a problem of lack of enough chairs. We spent all day standing while we were studying, and it is very hard to study in such conditions. Yes, we have exams very soon. One can study while standing because it is very exhausting. Due to the large number of students, some schools were added more chairs from different first grade classrooms whose students haven't returned to school yet. It is to a point that teachers are teaching in small spaces due to how congested the chairs are making the classrooms become. We added the number of chairs that they are now between 36 and 35. You can see we placed them in a unique way, just like how we are dealing with the unique virus. It is not easy for me to find a place to stand, but like the professional I am, I find a way to make sure I can teach and that the students are understanding. In the dormitories for students, where they sit in classrooms going for their meals and where they sleep, was returned to the way things were before COVID-19 because no new schools or facilities were built in order for it to suit the times. However, they continue to take precautions such as washing their hands, wearing a face mask, but there is still an issue of the place being overcrowded. The principals of these educational institutions have taken various decisions, including reducing the number of classes being taken by a student from 9 to 6. On this first day, the problem we faced was that children came at the same time and we had a few chairs. The way we decided to go about it is we divided them into various categories, some study in the morning and others in the evening. Those that came all at once didn't know the decisions that were taken. That is why you see some of them outside. If we have about 2,000 students in the morning session, of course it won't be easy to test their temperatures. Nevertheless, we work as a team of teachers using the 5 instruments of testing temperature that we have. The Minister of Education, Dr. Uwa Maria Valentine, has announced that the secondary schools that are going to welcome students should comply with the COVID-19 prevention measures, considering the size of the school. Students can be able to share benches and the overcrowding will be solved once new classrooms are built. According to the rules, we say that 23 children in one class, but we found it to be impossible. Now what we are going to do is the children are going to be sitting on one bench when there are 2. One sitting on one side and the other on the opposite side. But we have some schools that have already been completed. Of the 2,700 in the country, that is where I was saying we will send some teachers who have not been recruited, which was 76% of the world's population and 70% of the government, which is the majority of the population. The students who started classrooms from the second semester on Monday are those in the first, second and fourth year of high schools and those in the fourth year of primary school. Martina Abera, RTV News.
The Supreme Court says that 6% of the people who had cases in the year 2019-2020 were resolved through the mediation process. This is how the public believes it would prevent them from wasting a lot of time and money in the courts.
Some residents believe that they have been repeatedly harassed by their litigants because some have been reluctant to accept court decisions and choose to continue litigation until all procedures are complete. Not losing their time and resources is one of the things they find rewarding in reconciling with their litigants instead of being constantly in litigation. If we go to court, we waste time and resources, really, and people even end up hating one another. It's better if we adopt the mediation program. I think all Rwandans should come together and support the mediation program, and that would be very useful to the country. I believe that we should put effort there and sensitize people on the option. The Chief Justice of Rwanda, Dr. Faustin Nteziryayo, assures that the mediation program, which is a pillar of justice that will build the Rwandan community, will be explained to the public in a series of talks scheduled during this Judiciary Week. At the moment, especially in this century, arbitration works a lot in big lawsuits, especially those under commercial law, where people do not want to divulge certain information concerning their companies, and it is evident that this is happening at the mid-level and at the higher level of court. Usually the end result is complete justice, and when people play a role in solving their problem, they respect the solution and live in peace. This was often used in civil cases, but according to the Prosecutor General, this is now also applied in criminal cases. The law provides that this system of arbitration between the two parties in conflicts cannot be applied for crimes for which the penalty is more than 2 years of imprisonment, which means that this is only possible for crimes whose sentence is less than 2 years, unless the accused is a child, where mediation is possible and can be made for crimes whose penalty does not exceed 5 years of imprisonment. Julien Gustave Kavaruganda, president of the Rwanda Bar Association, says that as defendants in the courts, they also have no problem with the reconciliation process, as it will not remove the need for the public to continue to contact them. Having a lawyer intervene in the mediation process increases the number of clients because the case he defends also increases people he helps. Many people find solution quickly and people continue to live in harmony. Of the 15,377 cases passed through the preliminary hearings in 2019-2020, 854 cases have been resolved through mediation. This means that 6 out of every 100 people who had a case were able to be reached through the mediation process. The number of cases resolved through mediation will increase by 3% because in 2018-2019, out of 14,914 cases that had been passed through the pre-trial court, 3 out of every 100 people had been resolved before the courts.
Economic experts have noted that a reduction in the number of people who default on the bank loans is an indication of the country's growing economy. They, however, say more is needed to reduce the number of the defaulters further.
Defaulting on a bank loan is never a pleasant experience, either for clients or the banks, with shaming practices employed and collateral sold in auctions as the financial institutions scramble to save as much of their investment as they can. The farmer, David Nyoyunga, almost defaulted on his loan had it not been for help he received from Collection Africa Limited.
They
were about to auction off my property, but I have now realized that if you follow their advice, you are soon able to resume your payments to the bank and the problems cease. The heavy rainfall caused a crisis. Eventually, we could not pay back our loans. That institution then mediated between the bank and I just 2 weeks before the auction was scheduled to take place. However, an agreement was reached and we agreed with the bank about how we are going to pay, and everything was all right again. We are still working with the bank with no problems. Collection Africa Limited says it cannot buy out the debts of its clients. However, its mediation efforts have been paying off.
Collection Africa
has been helping Rwandans very much because 98% of the dossiers we receive are successfully resolved and auctions are avoided entirely. The remaining 2% do result in auctions despite our best efforts and those of our clients, and it's not from a lack of trying. Our primary objective is always to use dialogue to resolve the problems between lenders and borrowers. Economic experts have noted that a reduction in the number of people who default on their bank loans is an indication of the country's economy growing stronger. Shaming defaulters by posting up their names and pictures at the bank meant that even if afterwards they were able to pay back the loan, that would still be the end of their relationship with that particular bank because they would not return to it again. Clients want to have confidence in their financial institutions, and in developed countries, there are institutions that are able to give clients grace periods and even buy out their loans. At the very least, they provide financial advice to help the client recover, while talking to the bank on their behalf. When the clients recover and resume paying back the loans, normally everybody benefits, even the country's economy as a whole. The banks too get to keep their clients because when they lose them, it is a heavy blow on their profits. Officials at the central bank say commercial banks have to keep their non-performing loans below 5% if the economy is to be protected.
Ubundi politiki iriho cyangwa se uburyo dushishikariza amabanki no gushaka no kugerageza kwishyuza.
Our policy is to urge commercial banks to pursue non-performing loans so that such loans remain low and as close as possible to the recommended figures. This helps the financial sector to remain stable, with loans given paid back generally well.
Muri ubwo buryo rero bifasha urwego rw'imari kugira ngo nanone imyenda batanze ishobore kuba yakwishyurwa.
While some people have been criticized for dragging their feet when it comes to paying back loans, some banks have also been criticized for imposing extra fees on top of their interest, making it very difficult for clients to pay back their loans well.
Persons living with disabilities say that the fact that their rights are being respected today gives them strength to work as well as contributing to the country's development.
People that live with disabilities appreciate changes that have taken place in respecting their rights as well as giving them the value they deserve.
abafite ubumuga muri iki gihe bitandukanye no ku bihe bya
People living with disabilities today are different than before because their value is respected today in Rwandan society. They are given a voice and they have jobs where we used to be called bad names. I have a big goal. I would like to get as far as possible, progress and help others.
mbere nkateza imbere n'abandi bantu badashoboye.
umuryango wacu ufite ubumuga bw'ubugufi bukabije.
We are 170 in association of people living with severe disabilities. We were called dwarfs, but now they have understood that we are people like others. They used to think that we are not like others. Now I work, I can buy clothes, and I have food. I can get whatever I want, and I can go wherever I want.
aho nshaka kujya ndahajya.
The National Council of Persons with Disabilities indicates that the achievements achieved in the lives of people living with disabilities over the last 10 years since its establishment are real, where there are more than 200 cooperatives and more than 30 associations, which has led to the reduction of beggars. There are some that have understood and stopped wandering and begging. As we educate people, we tell them that begging does not honor us, and some of them have understood this. We conducted a survey and found that most of the beggars did not engage in begging because of poverty or problems, but because of growing while seeing how people with disabilities live. We had to teach them and change their mentality. There are those we have trained and given materials, and others were given capitals to start businesses. The Minister of State in charge of social affairs at Minarok, Inyasien Nyirarukundo, has said that in Rwanda, the welfare of people living with disabilities is giving positive results because of the fact that they have got their rights, where more effort were put in their education. There are obstacles we are still facing. There are parents that hide their children living with disabilities. Our plan is that every child in Rwanda should go to school. This helps us to know the one whose leg has got a problem, the one whose eyes will have a problem, and it will be known in time. We should strive to provide education for all. The 2020 General Population Census revealed that in Rwanda there are more than 446,000 people living with disabilities. Our weekly activities regards the celebration of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities will be held starting on 23rd of November. The 10th anniversary of the National Council of Persons with Disability will be celebrated.
This Monday, November the 23rd, the Chamber of Deputies called upon the Prime Minister to outline the strategies being taken to increase the efforts of expediting the planned constructions of infrastructure such as water, sanitation, electricity, rainwater tanks, which should be done within a month. Now, the parliamentarians have also decided to ask the Prime Minister to outline measures to speed up the installation of classrooms with necessary and high-quality materials so that schools can operate properly. These are some of the resolutions that were adopted following visits by the parliamentarians to all districts of the country, and the report was presented by the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Eda Mukabagwiza. And the Prime Minister also will be asked to outline the existing strategies to speed up the provision of needed teachers in schools. On behalf of the entire news team that made this news possible, thank you very much for being part of us. My name is Fiona Mbabazi. Have yourselves a lovely evening and a blessed and fruitful week ahead. And do remember that you and I will play a role that will flatten the curve of COVID-19.